And then we put weight on. And this is where body fat comes in, because body fat stores toxins, and the toxins that are in there include what's called xenoestrogens, or toxic estrogens. So the body fat then releases estrogen to try and make you feel good. So this is why when you're stressed, you might overeat, you might undereat, but you'll still gain some body fat, particularly centrally around the waist. And that is because you have to provide yourself estrogen. So this is where this comes in with the sexual energy. You need estrogen to have sexual energy. One way or another, your body will find a way to make it. Sorry, nerdy science moment there.
Oh my
people.
gosh, I loved that. I totally geeked out on that. That you are incredible, Magic. The way that you broke that down, and the way, you know what? That is the most feminine explanation of that I've ever heard. It was so beautiful. It was so, the way you connected it all up. Oh, it was like a beautiful synergy. It was so beautiful. Oh, yeah, that lit me up. I love that. Yeah. Thank you for that. That's just incredible.
My pleasure. Sorry, people. Science geek at the helm of this podcast.
Love it. Share your magic. It's beautiful.
So, what are your top 3 tips to creating wealth, be it personal, financial, or emotional?
Wow. Definitely my top one is to cultivate your sexual energy. Yeah, like completely. Actually, there's a mentor of mine. Anyway, it's anatomy, so I'll say it, but she says like lit vaginas make money. And what she's saying really is a woman in her power, she just shows up differently in the world. She has a sense of worth, a sense of value, and this power is cultivated when the sexual energy is running through her. And actually, I'm doing an abundance course at the moment with Reagan Hillier at Abundance, and she said that people that have abundance all have an energy about them. And the way she described this energy was literally exactly how I feel when my sexual energy is running through me. And so you just embody this essence. You are abundant. Sexual energy is an embodiment of abundance. It's life. It gives life. And so just being this energy, you attract what you are. So definitely cultivating this sexual energy is number one. Number two, I would say, is invest in yourself. You are your best investment invest in your wellness, invest in your health, invest in your mindset. Just invest in you. You know, you are, your number one investment. And the more you invest in you, the more you can show up and serve in the world. And abundance is a cycle of you're giving value and it's coming back to you. And the more you're investing in yourself, the more you're going to be able to give that value.
That totally reminds me of the saying that you cannot pour from an empty cup.
Yes.
So for all the listeners out there, the more you do for other people, the more you need to do for yourself.
Oh, I love that. Yes, actually, it actually reminds me of something else I learned from a very abundant person. His name's John Butcher. Does this thing called Life Book. He's a billionaire, and he says that your inputs need to equal your outputs in life. So if you're learning, you learn, and then you output, and it's the same. It's the same with abundance, and it's so beautiful that you brought that in with self-care. It's the same with self-care. So invest in yourself with self-care. And what is my third tip? So that is basically when we're in alignment, when we're on our path in life, one of the signs is that abundance finds us. It's kind of the signpost that, like, you're where you're meant to go. The way that you find your path, the way that you find your calling is to trust yourself and to follow your intuition. But that's too cryptic. No one really knows, is that my intuition? Is that fear? What's that sensation? You tell me to follow my intuition. I'm still in indecision. Curiosity is this beautiful overrider, because intuition is actually a very quiet knowing. It's kind of like, it's just a hunch, and it's just this still, silent sort of go this way, go that. It's not panicked. Fear is sort of panicked. And sometimes we're like, it's my gut feeling is saying no, but it's a panicked feeling. Okay. And that might actually be resistance or fear. But in terms of us being on our ultimate path, finding our journey, it's about honoring that curiosity, that quiet knowing that, oh, that's got my attention. Oh, that's interesting. And trusting it and diving into it. And yeah, the things that excite you are not an accident. And it just has blown my mind how by me just going, I'm interested in that, I'm going to read that. And it doesn't make sense to anyone else. It looks different to everyone else's journey. It puts you in flow with life. It puts you on the magic carpet ride of life where, yes, it doesn't look like anyone else's journey because now it's your journey because your curiosity is leading you to your unique path. It's like my number one life tip. My life has unfolded in miraculous, and I think I just look like an incredibly lucky person sometimes, and it's just this following my curiosity. And we both learned from someone called Ben Harvey, and he speaks about fearlessly following the feeling.
He also has this wonderful expression, let's find out.
Let's find out. I love that. I've forgotten that one. If you follow your curiosity, which is the quiet knowing, and you just go for it, then you feel the fear and you do it anyway, you know? It's
And
a
this is
way
something, Elise, that we do through our lives. So as children, we explore, we're curious. That's how we learn. We make mistakes, we learn from them, we change our behavior or our trajectory of life. As teens, we come into being fertile and curious about partners and what we're going to do for our futures, and we have to follow that curiosity there. Then as mothers, there's no manual. These living beings don't come with like a booklet going insert food here. Like you have to be curious.
Oh, yeah.
What happens if I don't do the nappy up tight enough? What happens if my kid eats some apple or sucks on the cat's tail or, like.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a way of not being stuck. It requires you to be open. It requires you to keep moving. And I believe, like from a spiritual standpoint, that there's this thing called the Tao Te Ching, and it talks about, it really resonates with me that we're spiritual beings and we're meant to move like water. The way you do that is to just keep flowing. And the way you flow is what's getting your attention now, what's tapping on your shoulder, what's knocking on your door. And when you study anyone that talks about abundance, they say this in different ways. Ken Honda, who's this Japanese billionaire, talks about trusting that the money will never run out. Therefore, whatever has got your attention, whatever feels fully in alignment, what feels like a yes to you, which you only find your yeses when you follow curiosity, is where you're meant to go. And this idea also comes from Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Big Magic, and she talks about how ideas fly. And she wrote Eat, Pray, Love, turned into a movie. She's got massive TED Talks and talks with Oprah on Soul Session. She's a massive success. And she says that for years she had this message of find your passion, and people were devastated, like, well, it's all good for you, I don't have my passion. And she realized, oh my gosh, not everyone that has a passion, but the way that you find it, you might have 10 passions. The way you find what they are, the way you find what your path is to be like a hummingbird, is to just keep, which flower do you want to go to next? Which thing do you want to you just keep flittering around. And I think sometimes as women, we judge ourselves for that. We feel like, oh, I didn't finish that course. I didn't finish that book. I didn't finish. Oh, I'm so unfocused. Well, what if in fact you were only meant to read 2 chapters? What if you trusted that you have the attention span you're meant to have, and your journey is unique and the things that have got your attention today? What if you lived in that essence of what Wayne Dyer said? It's like, be like an otter and live your otterness. What if you just flowed like an animal and trusted that this has got my attention, now this has got my attention, and it becomes this easy dance. And it's like this woman, Terry Cole, psychotherapist, once gave the example. It's like a dog. A dog doesn't question itself. It walks to a street, it looks down a street, sniffs, no, keeps moving, sniffs, no, keeps moving. Oh, I'll go down this street. It doesn't freak out. Oh, I meant to go down every street. I haven't covered all corners. I meant to. Animals and nature are just like this, and we're supposed to be like this. We're supposed to trust ourselves a lot more, but fear and resistance get in the way. And for years I searched what is fear and what is intuition and what's resistance. Stephen Pressfield is like, everything you want basically is on the other side of resistance. Run towards resistance. And then it's like, but follow your intuition. And when you're standing there and you're stuck in that feeling of, I've got a big no, but is that no intuition or resistance or fear, or is that my truth? I think it's so hard. And if we take away from all the big feelings and we go, What's knocking on my door right now? What's tapping on my shoulder? What just feels good in this moment? Also, Abraham Hicks talks about getting on the vortex. Reach for the next good feeling thought. Your curiosity will show you what's going to feel good right now, and trust that. So, yeah.
Exactly. Well said.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, it's really transformed my life doing that. Stop putting shoulds on myself and thinking it has to look a certain way, and that, you know, I'm supposed to do X, Y, Z, but sinking into this beautiful, feminine, intuitive trust and wisdom from within that my path ought to look unique from everyone else's because I am a unique being. We've got to be humble and know we're all not that significant, but we are all like our own fingerprint. And the way that we find our own thing that's going to light us up is by trusting our own hunches. And I think a curiosity is a really light way of realizing, oh, it's a light feeling of, well, it's playful, right? Yeah.
I love that. And just on carving your own path and finding your own way, I live in the country. And a couple of weeks ago, we had torrential rain here. Thank goodness. We needed it.
Oh.
But as I went out walking, I watched how the water flowed. So we have a creek that runs through our township. And the creek didn't flow where it normally flows. It cut its own path.
Ooh.
And what it did was it cut through the countryside, past some rocky cliffs and through some trees, and just watching how the water made its own path
I love that.
brilliant. And it ended up where it needed to go, which was in our local lake. But just watching this powerful entity cut its path.
Oh, I'm getting tingles. I love it.
Yeah, it was amazing. A friend and I that we
Yes.
go walking every day, and we were just standing on the bridge watching the water. And it's just so powerful. And people who are listening today, I need you to understand this. You are 90% water.
Ooh.
So you are able to cut your own path in life. It's not, you know, what your husband, ex-husband, wife, ex-wife, father, mother, uncle, next door neighbour, Mrs. Jones down the road. It's not what they want for you. It's what you find for yourself. It's the path that you cut. And remembering that you are water and you can choose your own way. Please remember that.
Oh my God, I'm feeling this so deeply. This is actual magic that just lit me up so much. Yes. Yes, I love it. And I love the way you created the beautiful imagery. I was imagining that water. And it's so true. And that's a beautiful thing to just say to ourselves, what would water do? In this situation, what would water do? You know, because sometimes I find myself cycling back. You know, those cycles in our life, cycle, keep going back to the same person, same situation, expecting a different result. In that moment, I have to go, bang, what would water do? Water would keep flowing. What is the next other thing that's getting your curiosity? Keep flowing. And it's just, and I love, but what was magic about that was the water cutting its own path, because water is wild. And it's soft. And the soft overcomes the hard. As in, water flows in a softness, but it will wear down rock.
Yes.
And so we've just got to remember that it's not about being a wrecking ball, smashing things. And it's the same with people and relationships. We flow, we move. Does this feel good? Does that not feel good? And we just move in and out and be light about it, knowing that water always ends up sort of where it intends to want to go without really damaging things along the way, just flowing on past, you know?
Exactly. And if you listen to my previous podcast, it's all about internal water. Yeah. Like it's so amazing how our bodies are made. Just the components, the mechanisms, the actions, it's all so perfectly synergistic. And we put so much stress on ourselves that we stop that flow. And then we get stuck. And we look for people to blame. There is no one to blame. You just have to look within and make some changes.
Oh, truth bomb. Yes. Guru magic.
here we do talk about weight loss. Many people battle it needlessly. It becomes this overruling idea and conception in the world. So how can you help the listeners who might be battling their weight, and how can you talk to them about reducing their stress, which we know is a key problem in weight loss?
So something I will say that is completely magical about sexual energy and the tools that I provide in terms of cultivating it and having it flowing through you is it addresses weight in a couple of ways. So for me, what really astounded me actually was the refiguring of my body, because I'd always been eating really well and everything, but my body, the ratios of my body reconfigured once I started cultivating the sexual energy because my hormones were balancing out, right? So when I was more estrogen dominant, I was holding way more weight on my bum and thighs. And, you know, I am sort of naturally still more of like that pear shape. And I am in Ayurveda, there's different dosha types. I am a dominant kapha, which means I do accumulate and hold on to a lot more. So I do still have accumulation around bum and thighs, but it's, my husband is like, it's so different. The way that my body has configured, there's way less. I'm far more even all over. And that was just from doing, the only thing I changed was the sexual cultivation. But the second thing that happened was that I wasn't as hungry. And just because sometimes our hunger is filling a void, you know, because we can get dopamine, we can get happy hormones from eating, right? And sometimes if we're missing other sources of those hormones from connection, from meditation, from exercise, from being in the sun, from feeling good, we'll want those hormones and we'll eat more. And when I started doing the sexual energy cultivation and filling up this void, I'd always felt like I'd had this deep hunger inside of me, this deep craving that just could never be touched. And finally, cultivating the sexual energy, it was just filling this up. And so I've always been a real person who really into food, massive appetite, massive, and could just eat so much. And also if I was eating, I could not stop halfway. Even if I got full, I just had to keep going, right? And for a number of reasons. One, through working on what is the story behind that while cultivating the sexual energy and using that as a healing tool to decipher what was that pattern going on with me and bringing awareness to it and shedding that need anymore. The healing from the cultivating the sexual tools, you know, kind of got rid of that hunger, but also just the chemical cocktail of having those beautiful hormones swirling around my body meant I was just nowhere near as hungry. It's easy and effortless for me. It's so bizarre. So I'd always followed health protocols, right? But I finally started, you know, learning about how to cultivate sexual energy and spending time doing this. And within 2 weeks, you can literally look at the photos. I transformed. My face started just having more shape, like fluid just drained out of my face, just fluid just drained out of my body. It was like, because when you've got a high cortisol and stress, it can create fluid retention too. And I think just having that time of relaxing and this letting go, I just let go of all this water. I let go of all this weight. And I noticed this with a lot of my healing tools. I can spend 20 minutes, whatever, doing a healing tool, and afterwards it'll look like I've lost weight. And it's just this letting go, this getting the hormones back in balance. So it was both. Everyone just kept saying, wow, you look different. You've lost all this weight. I actually, when I hit my rock bottom, I went off social media. And when I came back on social media 2 years later, everyone was like, the number one thing was, wow, you've lost all this weight. And I wasn't trying to lose weight. I was trying to get well. Even though I was pre-diabetic, right? I wasn't overweight. I was in a healthy BMI, about 10 kilos just came off. But what was more important was that my body balanced out in terms of the ratio, in terms of where I was holding fat. So I lost all this weight, but I didn't lose it from my boobs, you know, I lost it from my bum and my thighs. And importantly, at the same time, as I was doing the sexual healing cultivation, I was making sure I was taking in all the supplements that support the liver and detoxing. Because as you were saying, all of those toxins in the fat, once you start losing weight, we're releasing. And I was making sure I was taking the supplements to effectively release those toxins out of my body at the same time. So it's a synergistic picture. If I had just been losing weight and releasing toxins, sometimes we hear of people that they lose this weight and then suddenly they get a health issue. You've got to make sure you're getting in all the vitamins and minerals and nutrients that support the phases of liver detoxification, so you can ensure that when the toxins are released, they're getting out of your body. But yeah, it blew my mind how this one thing, I thought I was always having to look at food, and I thought I was always having to look at meal plans and things like this. And I was, before I found this piece. And now I see other women out there, spruiking intuitive eating and the no diet weight loss plan. And now I can see why that is possible, because if you feel the deep cravings and yearnings within you, with healthy sources of those hormones, with this incredible satiation and this satisfaction from within, which just sexual energy gives you this, then you start eating out of kind of love. And what do I feel like? And you also don't have this scarcity. You feel abundant from within. So if you get a bit hungry, it doesn't trigger a scarcity freak out in me, because I'm feeling so abundant. Honestly, it was the missing link, as I said. So I've done like 14 and a half years of self-development now. 32 years of being a health nut, basically. We'll take away the first 2 years, all right? 30 years of being a health nut and 12, 14 years of self-development. And it wasn't until I found this sexual energy piece that I finally got the results I'd always been seeking. It was mind-blowing how, oh my gosh, I got to shout this from the rooftops, that this is the missing link, because the idea and the imagery of sex has been so butchered by this patriarchal view of women as objects and as toys for man's pleasure. It's actually robbed women of knowing this inherent, intense, immense power within them, that if they own it, if they step into it, if they make it theirs, is this incredible force that leads to abundance, it leads to creativity, it leads to the body and the weight of their desires, it leads to their self-love and self-worth. They don't even attach to the fact if their body is what they want, because they just love themselves regardless. And it's just so powerful. And I think women, we often we're looking around like, it's not fair, women aren't paid equal, blah, 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 blah. We need to actually just rise up from within and find our power from within. And honestly, if all women came alive in their sexual energy, this world would balance out. And also there's a saying in sexuality, in ancient Taoist philosophy, that it is actually the woman who leads the man back to God. So you don't have to be religious. You can say source, the universe. But basically it's the woman. And it's because the woman is this magnetic essence. And when she steps into her power, she becomes the muse, and she inspires a man, the masculine, to want to rise with her. And so if women can rise up within themselves and heal the feminine power, that work alone will inspire the masculine to start healing the masculine power, because masculinity is butchered as well. And it just has the absolute potential to completely change the world.
Listeners, we've brought you so much information today that, Elise, I think we need to have you back on the podcast and expand out some of these things that we've discussed. But for now, how can people find you on social media?
Oh, I'd absolutely love to. I find you absolutely fascinating, and I love your geek science stuff. Just live and breathe it in your discussion on the water. So that's an absolute joy. They can find me. Instagram is a big one for me. So at Elise, Elise, Peck, Peck, _well. It's in like wellness. That's my Instagram. And also they can add me on Facebook. I do have a Facebook business page, but right now you can just add me as a friend on Facebook until the spots max out. But yeah, because I'm starting to, Instagram's in my focus, but I'm really starting to be more alive on Facebook as well. So you can come join me on Instagram and Facebook. I'd love to connect.
And we love to give the listeners freebies here. We're all about giving. So what freebie can you offer the listeners?
Yes. So I have this incredible Feminine Flow Rampage audio, and it gets you to start stepping into your feminine power, being this magnetic essence. But also, the biggest thing it does is get you comfortable with the idea of being in your feminine power and of being this essence that has sexual energy running through you. Because sometimes the greatest thing that we fear is actually our own power or stepping into our full potential. And this gets you in the zone. It gives you permission to step into your power, to acknowledge your power, and to be comfortable with becoming magnetic, with becoming the feminine power, which is the most powerful force in the universe. So that's a beautiful audio that really, it's called a Feminine Flow Rampage, really gets you in that zone. Someone told me she was listening to it, and just that alone, she started walking into work and just everyone started complimenting her. What are you doing? You look, she's like, never happened before. Because I was saying, you look amazing. She's like, I just literally have been listening to this 10-minute audio. So it's a powerful 10 minutes.
There you go, listeners. You'll get the Feminine Flow Rampage free audio at Elise Peck _well on Instagram, or at Elise Peck on Facebook.
Yeah, so they can email me for that. Elise Peck, ELISEPECK @gmail.com.
Terrific. Coming up in episode 29, we have the gorgeous and glowing Inga Truscott coming to talk about essential self-care using essential oils.
Beautiful.
We have lots more great episodes coming up. I have a list of guests that I have to get onto in the next few days for you all. But for now, please don't forget to review the podcast, share the podcast, talk about it with your friends. If you're in a lockdown area in the world, this is your time to listen to podcasts, take notes, share the information, live the information, and just get out there and create your magical life. Thank you very much, listeners. Thanks for listening today. Please subscribe to hear future episodes, leave a review, and share this podcast. You can follow us on Facebook at A Magical Life Podcast or at Holistic Natural Health Australia. That's holistic with a W. You can find us on Instagram at Holistic Natural Health or at www.holisticnaturalhealth.com.au. That's where you'll access all sorts of articles, freebies, and more.